The memory crystals of the Cracks' dominion were living archives, each containing millennia of conquered civilizations. Captain Zaranilik traced her fingers along the prismatic surface of the central archive, watching holographic records of past extinctions flicker like ghostly memories. 17,000 years of uninterrupted galactic dominance had transformed the Cracks from a mere species into something closer to a force of nature. Their biology was a testament to controlled evolution. Each Cracks was a marvel of genetic engineering. Muscles that could withstand extreme gravitational pressures, neural networks that processed information faster than most computer systems, and a collective memory that preserved every strategic decision made by their ancestors. They were not conquerors in the traditional sense. They were cultivators of cosmic order, removing inefficient civilizations to maintain galactic stability. The human file was almost laughable in its apparent simplicity. Planet designation: Earth. Technological classification: primitive. Social structure: fractured. Potential resistance: negligible. Zara's augmented eyes scanned the preliminary reports. Humans seemed to be a species defined by contradiction. They possessed rudimentary faster-than-light communication technologies alongside massive environmental challenges. Their nations fought each other while simultaneously developing complex global networks. Their military capabilities were inconsistent. Some regions possessed advanced weaponry, while others struggled with basic infrastructure. Another routine pacification, she muttered to her secondary neural interface. The Cracks had a precise methodology for planetary conquest. First, comprehensive reconnaissance. Then, strategic infrastructure disruption. Finally, either assimilation or complete extinction. They had perfected this process across thousands of worlds, leaving behind sterile, efficiently managed planetary systems. Humanity represented something of a curiosity. Most species they encountered either surrendered immediately or were crushed within solar cycles. But humans displayed an unusual resilience in their historical records. They had survived multiple near-extinction events, climate disasters, global conflicts, technological upheavals. Where other civilizations would have collapsed, humans adapted. Not that it would matter in the end. The Cracks' worship eternal judgment hung in orbit around Earth, its biomechanical hull capable of absorbing and redirecting entire electromagnetic spectrums. Quantum scanning beams penetrated the planet's atmosphere, mapping every significant technological node, every potential point of resistance. To Captain Nilek, humanity was just another entry in the grand archive of conquered civilizations, a minor footnote in the Cracks' ongoing mission to maintain galactic efficiency. What she didn't realize was that efficiency and unpredictability were about to have a spectacular confrontation. The Cracks had made many conquests. They had studied countless civilizations. They believed they understood every possible variation of resistance. They were wrong. And humanity was about to teach them a lesson they would never forget. The Atacama Desert Research Facility looked like nothing more than a standard geological research station from the outside. Buried beneath 40 meters of rock and reinforced with advanced electromagnetic shielding, it was humanity's most closely guarded secret. Dr. Sarah Chen moved between holographic displays, her fingers dancing across quantum interfaces that would have seemed like magic to most of the world. She hadn't slept in 72 hours, but exhaustion was a luxury she couldn't afford. The preliminary alien reconnaissance data suggested an imminent invasion, and humanity's survival depended on preparations most people couldn't even comprehend. Network integrity at 97.3%, mumbled Dr. Raj Patel, her lead communications specialist. Unlike traditional military communication systems, their network was a living, breathing organism. Each node was both a potential weapon and a defensive mechanism, capable of rapid reconfiguration and self-repair. The team was a carefully curated group of the world's most brilliant minds, united by a singular purpose. They represented a cross-section of humanity that most governments didn't even know existed. A quantum physicist from Mumbai, a cybersecurity expert from Sao Paulo, a systems engineer from Seoul, a machine learning specialist from Lagos. Each brought a unique perspective, a different approach to the ultimate problem of alien resistance. "We're more than just a defense network," Sarah explained to her team during their last briefing. "We're creating a planetary immune system." Their preparation wasn't just technological. They had been studying alien invasion scenarios for decades, developing strategies that went far beyond traditional military thinking. Every system, agricultural, communication, transportation, energy, was being transformed into a potential defensive mechanism. Satellite networks were being reconfigured to act as distributed computing platforms. Power grids were being redesigned to become adaptive defensive systems. Even educational networks were being prepared to rapidly disseminate strategic information and coordinate civilian resistance. The CREAX scanning technologies were sophisticated, but they operated on predictable quantum signatures. What they couldn't detect was the organic, almost alive nature of humanity's preparation. Each system was designed with multiple layers of misdirection, with capabilities that could shift and adapt faster than any external scanning technology could comprehend. "They're looking for a traditional military structure," Rad said, pulling up multiple holographic projections. "What they'll find is something entirely different." Sarah's primary breakthrough was a quantum entanglement communication protocol that could transmit information instantaneously across global networks. Traditional communication relied on physical infrastructure. Her system relied on the fundamental quantum properties of matter itself, something no external scanning technology could predict or interrupt. "We're not just preparing to defend," she told her team. "We're preparing to transform." The cracks believed they were approaching a primitive civilization. They didn't realize they were walking into a global, living technological organism that was already preparing to fight back. Beneath the Atacama facility, massive quantum processors hummed with potential. Distributed across underground facilities on every continent, they represented humanity's true strength, not in military might, but in collective intelligence and adaptive capability. Outside, the desert remained silent. Inside, the most important preparation in human history continued, undetected and unstoppable. The Cracks invasion fleet descended like a metallic nightmare, their biomechanical warships blotting out the sky. Each vessel was a living weapon, capable of reducing entire continents to molten glass with a single discharge. Captain Zara Nilik watched from the bridge of the Eternal Judgment, expecting the familiar pattern of planetary submission she had witnessed thousands of times before. Her first indication that something was wrong came exactly 3.6 standard galactic minutes after the initial assault began. The attack should have been instantaneous, systematic, overwhelming. Instead, human systems responded with a fluidity that defied all Cracks' tactical projections. In Tokyo, a network of repurposed bullet train communication systems redirected military information faster than the invaders could track. Sao Paulo's power grid transformed into a distributed defense network, its energy systems becoming adaptive electromagnetic shields. The African Union's satellite array, once used for climate monitoring, now acted as a global early warning and counterintelligence platform. Major cities weren't just defending, they were fighting back. "Impossible," muttered Nilik, watching her tactical displays flicker and dance with unexpected complexity. A missile launched from a submarine in the Pacific Ocean wasn't just a missile. It was a quantum-encrypted communication packet designed to disrupt alien targeting systems. A weather satellite over the Atlantic became a weapon of electronic warfare. Even civilian drones began coordinating in patterns that suggested a collective intelligence. Dr. Sarah Chen's preparations were showing their true potential. In New York, what appeared to be a simple traffic management system became a real-time strategic coordination network. Emergency services, transformed by years of quiet preparation, moved with a precision that suggested something more than standard military training. Every citizen was a potential node in a massive living defense network. The Cracks had conquered civilizations that fought with traditional military might. They understood organized resistance. What they couldn't comprehend was a civilization where the entire planet was a single adaptive organism. Tactical anomaly, reported the Eternal Judgment's primary interface, human defensive capabilities exceeding projected parameters by 637%. Nilec's genetic memory, containing the extinction records of thousands of civilizations, offered no context for what was happening. The humans weren't just resisting. They were transforming the very nature of the conflict in real time. A massive electromagnetic pulse that should have disabled critical infrastructure instead seemed to flow around human systems, as if the technology itself was alive and adapting. Communication networks that should have been destroyed restructured themselves instantaneously, finding new pathways, new methods of transmission. The invasion was supposed to be a routine pacification, a standard planetary submission that would take no more than several solar cycles. Instead, the Cracks found themselves in a war unlike anything in their 17,000-year history. Humanity wasn't just fighting back. They were rewriting the rules of warfare itself. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before a wall of quantum processors that breathed with light and possibility. Each system was more than a computer. It was a living neural network that learned and adapted with every millisecond of the ongoing conflict. "We're not just fighting," she explained to General Marcus Rodriguez, her fingers tracing holographic displays that shifted and reconfigured in real time. "We're evolving." The Cracks had technological superiority. What they didn't understand was human unpredictability. Their first mistake was viewing human technology as a static system. Every piece of technology on Earth was now part of a massive, distributed intelligence. Smartphones became sensor networks. Smart refrigerators transformed into communication nodes. Electric vehicle charging stations became electromagnetic defense platforms. In the underground Atacama facility, AI systems developed by Chen's team were doing something unprecedented. They weren't just processing information. They were predicting Cracks' tactical movements with terrifying accuracy. Machine learning algorithms consumed vast streams of data, creating predictive models that seemed to anticipate alien strategies before they were even conceived. "They're trying to fight a war using rules we never agreed to," Chen muttered. A traffic management AI in Mumbai suddenly detected a potential Cracks targeting pattern. Within microseconds, the insight was distributed across global networks. Power grids in Brazil adjusted their electromagnetic signatures. Satellite communications in Australia realigned their quantum encryption. A weather monitoring system in Canada began generating complex interference patterns. The Cracks had a fundamental misunderstanding about human technology. They saw individual systems. Humans had created a planetary intelligence. General Rodriguez watched in awe as civilian technologies transformed into a unified defense mechanism. An agricultural monitoring satellite became an early warning system. A streaming services content delivery network became a method of encrypted global communication. Even social media platforms were repurposed into real-time strategic coordination tools. Dr. Elena Martinez, a neural interface specialist, had spent years developing what the scientific community had considered an impossible technology. Her breakthrough allowed human cognitive patterns to be translated into computational logic. The result was an adaptive intelligence that could think faster than any traditional computer system. "We're not just using technology," Martins explained during an emergency briefing. "We're becoming the technology." The Cracks scanning systems detected massive computational activity, but could not comprehend its nature. What appeared to be random noise was actually a sophisticated planet-wide information exchange. Every human became a potential processor, every device a potential weapon. In the Eternal Judgment, Captain Zara Nilek watched her tactical displays with growing horror. The humans weren't just resisting, they were transforming the very nature of technological warfare. Their quantum algorithms predicted Cracks' movements with impossible accuracy. Their communication networks restructured faster than they could be attacked. What the aliens saw as primitive technology was actually a living, breathing technological organism. Humanity wasn't just fighting an invasion. They were giving birth to an entirely new form of intelligence. The transmission began on all known galactic communication frequencies simultaneously. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in the communication hub of the Atacama facility, her fingers hovering over quantum entanglement transmitters that could pierce through any known communication barriers. The message wasn't just information. It was a weapon more potent than any physical armament. Captured crack soldiers watched in growing psychological disintegration. The transmission told stories, not just of human resistance, but of human existence, moments of extraordinary sacrifice, tales of survival against impossible odds, documentaries of human resilience that defied every known principle of galactic conflict. They showed the cracks something they had never encountered, a species that found strength in its apparent weaknesses. A clip from Earth's history archives displayed the construction of the International Space Station, a project that required unprecedented global cooperation. Another segment showed medical researchers working together across national boundaries during a global pandemic. Images of environmental restoration projects demonstrated humanity's capacity for planetary healing. "We're not just showing them our history," Rodriguez explained to her team. "We're showing them our potential." The crack's communication analysis systems couldn't comprehend the transmission's complexity. It wasn't propaganda. It wasn't a traditional information attack. It was a multidimensional psychological projection that attacked the very foundations of the crack's collective consciousness. In the detention zones where captured crack soldiers were held, something unprecedented began to happen. These warriors, bred for conquest, genetically engineered for absolute loyalty, started to experience something their civilization had never understood: empathy. They were shown human art, music that expressed complex emotional landscapes, paintings that captured moments of profound vulnerability and strength, literature that explored the depths of individual and collective human experience. A cracks interrogation specialist named Voxina found herself deeply disturbed. The humans weren't just resisting. They were revealing an entire dimension of existence the cracks had never comprehended. The transmission continued. Stories of individual human sacrifice. A firefighter saving a child during a massive wildfire. A scientist working decades to develop a cure for a rare disease. A community rebuilding after a natural disaster. Each story was a quantum-encrypted message that penetrated deeper than any physical weapon could. Psychological warfare isn't about breaking their military, Rodriguez told General Chen. It's about breaking their understanding of what's possible. Crack's Central Command began to experience systemic cognitive disruptions. Their collective neural networks, designed for absolute strategic thinking, couldn't process the complexity of human narrative. Where they expected uniform resistance, they found infinite variation. A child's drawing of hope. An elderly couple's love story. A community's resilience. These became weapons more destructive than any physical technology. The cracks had conquered thousands of civilizations by understanding their physical limitations. Humanity was teaching them that the most powerful limitation is the one you place on your own imagination. The cracks never understood that for humans, every system was a potential weapon. In Kerala, India, a small agricultural research center transformed an advanced crop irrigation system into a sophisticated electromagnetic interference network. Precision water management algorithms became tools for disrupting alien communication frequencies. Sensor networks designed to monitor soil moisture now tracked cracks troop movements with terrifying accuracy. Dr. Aisha Kapoor watched her screens with a mixture of scientific fascination and strategic determination. What appeared to be a simple agricultural monitoring station was now a critical node in humanity's distributed defense system. "We're not just fighting," she muttered to her team. "We're reimagining the entire concept of warfare." Educational networks became intelligence-gathering platforms. Children's coding classes transformed into distributed computing centers that could process quantum-level tactical information. Universities became research hubs that rapidly developed countermeasures against alien technologies. In Sao Paulo, a public transportation management system became a real-time strategic coordination network. Bus routes were no longer about moving people, they were about moving information, creating dynamic communication pathways that the CREAX scanning systems couldn't predict or interrupt. Captain Zara Nilek of the Kraks' Eternal Judgment found herself confronting a battlefield that defied every strategic model in her genetic memory. Humans weren't fighting with traditional military structures. They were fighting with something far more dangerous, a living, adaptive network that treated the entire planet as a single organism. A renewable energy grid in Australia wasn't just producing electricity. It was generating complex electromagnetic interference patterns that disrupted alien targeting systems. Solar panel farms became massive sensor networks. Wind turbines transformed into communication relays. They're treating their entire civilization as a weapon, Nilek reported to her command structure, her voice betraying a hint of something unprecedented. Fear. Medical research facilities became rapid response technology development centers. A cancer research lab in Tokyo developed neural interface technologies that could jam Kraks' communication frequencies. A genetic research center in Cape Town created adaptive camouflage technologies that could fool even the most advanced alien scanning systems. Every civilian was a potential combatant, every piece of infrastructure a potential defensive mechanism. The Kraks had conquered civilizations that fought with traditional military might. They understood organized resistance. What they couldn't comprehend was a civilization where the entire planet was a single, adaptive, living intelligence. A streaming services content delivery network became an encrypted communication platform. Social media algorithms transformed into strategic coordination tools. Online gaming networks became distributed computing centers that could process tactical information faster than any centralized military system. Humanity wasn't just resisting. They were rewriting the fundamental rules of conflict. "We don't have an army," Dr. Kapoor explained during a global coordination meeting. "We are the army." The Kraks were about to learn a fundamental truth about humanity. When threatened, they don't just fight. They evolve. The battle for Earth wasn't fought in a single location. It was a global symphony of resistance, a planetary immune response that defied every known principle of warfare. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the heart of the Atacama facility, her fingers dancing across quantum interfaces that pulsed with impossible complexity. Beside her, General Marcus Rodriguez monitored a holographic display that showed the entire conflict in real time, a living, breathing representation of humanity's collective resistance. "They think they're fighting us," Chen muttered, "but we're fighting something much larger." The Kraks' Eternal Judgment hung in orbit, its biomechanical hull a testament to millennia of galactic conquest. Captain Zara Nilek watched in growing horror as her supposedly invincible systems began to break down. Human resistance wasn't just adaptive, it was transformative. Quantum entanglement communication networks allowed instantaneous strategic coordination that the Kraks scanning systems couldn't comprehend. Every human became a potential processor, every device a potential weapon. The conflict had transcended traditional military engagement. In Tokyo, a network of repurposed medical imaging systems created complex electromagnetic interference patterns. A research facility in Lagos used advanced climate modeling algorithms to predict and counter alien troop movements. An agricultural monitoring station in Brazil transformed its satellite network into a global early warning system. The Kraks had a fatal flaw: their centralized command structure. Humanity's strength was its distributed, adaptive intelligence. Dr. Elena Martinez's neural interface breakthrough became the ultimate weapon. Her system allowed human cognitive patterns to be translated into computational logic, creating an adaptive intelligence that could think faster than any traditional computer system. "We're not just using technology," Martinez had explained earlier. "We're becoming the technology." The final assault came from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. Kraks' communication systems were flooded with quantum-encrypted information packets that simultaneously attacked and restructured their neural networks. Captured alien technologies were instantly reverse-engineered, their own weapons turned against them. Captain Nilek watched in disbelief as her ship's most advanced defensive systems were systematically dismantled. Not through brute force, but through an intelligence that seemed to understand their technology better than they did. A massive electromagnetic pulse, coordinated across global networks, struck the eternal judgment. But it wasn't a traditional weapon. It was a living, adaptive signal that rewrote the very fundamental operating principles of the Kreak's technological systems. They're not just fighting, Nilek reported to her failing command structure. They're evolving in real time. The final moment came not with a massive explosion, but with a quiet transformation. The Kreak systems didn't just fail, they were systematically rewritten, their fundamental programming restructured by intelligence they couldn't comprehend. Humanity didn't just win a war. They'd redefined the very concept of conflict. The silence after the conflict was more profound than the battle itself. In the Atacama facility, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the first transmissions from beyond Earth's immediate space. The Kreak's dominion, a civilization that had ruled the galaxy for 17 millennia, was systematically dismantling itself, not through external force, but through an internal transformation triggered by their encounter with humanity. We didn't just defeat them, Chen explained to the gathered representatives from every nation. We showed them a different way of existing. The galactic community watched in stunned silence. Other subjugated species, who had lived under Kreak's oppression for generations, began to see possibility where they had previously seen only submission. Captain Zarenlek, the first Kreak's officer to fully comprehend the magnitude of their defeat, stood before the Galactic Diplomatic Council. Her report was unlike any in the Dominion's history. It wasn't a record of conquest or defeat, but a fundamental revaluation of what intelligence could mean. Humanity, she stated, her voice carrying the weight of 17,000 years of genetic memory, is not a species. It is a process of continuous adaptation. The diplomatic protocols developed in the aftermath of the conflict were revolutionary. Instead of traditional territorial negotiations, humans proposed a new model of galactic interaction based on collaborative problem-solving. Their approach wasn't about domination, but about collective growth. Research facilities that had been developed during the conflict now turned their attention to solving galactic-scale challenges. The same networks that had coordinated planetary defense now worked on climate restoration, technological exchange, and interspecies communication. Dr. Elena Martinez's neural interface technologies became the foundation of a new form of galactic communication. Species that had never been able to understand each other now found common ground through adaptive translation systems that went beyond traditional language barriers. The Kreak's genetic archives, once a tool of oppression, became a living museum of galactic diversity. The very technology they had used to subjugate other species was now being used to preserve and celebrate difference. Earth became something unprecedented, not a conquered planet, but a diplomatic hub. The same distributed intelligence that had defeated the Kreaks now worked on solving challenges for multiple species. Agricultural systems developed in India helped restore ecosystems on distant planets. Communication technologies from Brazil created new forms of interspecies dialogue. We didn't win a war, General Marcus Rodriguez told the First Interstellar Collaborative Council. We demonstrated a different approach to existence. The Kreak survivors were offered a choice: integrate and adapt, or isolate themselves. Many chose integration, fascinated by a model of intelligence that valued diversity over uniformity. Diplomatic missions from Earth carried with them not just technological innovations, but a fundamental philosophical approach. Intelligence wasn't about control. It was about continuous adaptation, about seeing potential where others saw limitation. The galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had done more than defeat a seemingly invincible enemy. They had reimagined what was possible.